Now, a question a lot of people seem to be asking themselves is, should I pick up an iPod in 2025? Well, you really need to ask yourself the question as to why you want to pick up an iPod. A lot of people like the aesthetic of the iPod or going back to a day when we would use proprietary devices instead of our phone for everything, but what's the real reason a lot of people are actually switching to the iPod? Now, me personally, I grew up with these back in the early 2000s in high school and after high school. This was an awesome thing to have to listen to all of your music. Before that, of course, it was CDs and Walkmans, and the iPod seems to have picked up a huge resurgence in the last few years because people are not only looking for a way to listen to music that's not on their phone, they're looking for ways to listen to music that they can actually own that they've purchased. So, a lot of times we use things like Spotify, Pandora, or Apple Music subscription to listen to our music, which is totally fine. I totally understand the reasoning behind it. Not everyone wants to go out and buy a CD or buy a, album and only have that one album rather than have a huge library available to you at all times. But for a lot of people, that's not always the case that they want. So personally, I don't really use Spotify. The only times I really use Pandora is if I'm going to not really be focusing on the music and I just need it as background noise while I'm cooking or something. And that's free, so you don't actually pay for that one because it already has ads and everything on it. And for the most part, it's totally fine. Things like Spotify and Apple Music subscription can go ahead and remove music at any point if they feel like it's not part of what they want to have on their subscription. And you never actually feel like you own this music because you're paying a monthly subscription for it. Now, something like an iPod lets you go ahead and put all of the music that you've purchased either through CDs or through digital downloads like Amazon MP3, Bandcamp, stuff like that, and you have it on here, and no one can take it away from you. So no one's going to come and take your iPod and take your music away from you. With Spotify, that's different. You're not going to always have an option to listen to the same music you want to. And even then, are you always listening to the same thing? Do you find yourself that you're paying a subscription to listen to the same music over and over again? At that point, is it really worth it? So a lot of people think, well, I'm going to buy the album of the artist that I really like, and I'll have it on something like this. And it's with you at all times. Now, again, people are going to say, just use your phone. Why do you need a completely separate device? Well, this device is distraction free. See, on your phone, if you want to have music playing or something, you're at the risk of notifications coming in, a call coming in, or just something else that's going to distract you from listening to the music. Now, I personally do like to have music in the background if I'm working or studying or focusing on something as just a kind of, little background noise. And that's fine. But when you want to really focus in and listen to music, I feel like something like this is perfect because there's no TikTok on here, there's no Instagram, there's no social media on this thing. So you can set your phone down, put your headphones on, and listen to this without any distractions. Of course, your phone is still there, but it's not on the device that you're listening to your music. So I feel like that's why a lot of people are now switching to something like this or newer MP3 players. I mean, there's a, treasure trove of MP3 players on Amazon that you're going to find from $10 to $150 to $300 for, digital MP3 players. Sony has some very expensive MP3 Walkmans that you can still buy that are very expensive and look really nice. And they have lossless audio, they have all that great stuff. So there is definitely a market for it. And of course, it's not for everybody. I consider this a niche. This is something that is not only nostalgic for a lot of people, a lot of Gen Z is also going the route of something like this. But the thing that bugs me a little bit is how people are going about getting music onto these. Back in the day, you would buy a CD on your computer because all computers back then had a CD drive. You would import that music to your computer into iTunes and then transfer it onto here for listening on here. Nowadays, people don't really buy CDs unless you're getting it for a collection or a very specific reason that it came with a bunch of other stuff or something like that. So a lot of people forget or don't know how to go through and obtain music. So people end up relying on things like YouTube downloaders. The problem with that, though, is you're downloading a really, really usually bad version of those songs. The quality is usually going to be really bad. And for a lot of people, it doesn't matter. They just want to be able to hear those songs on there. And I think stuff like a YouTube downloader can be great if it's music that's just not accessible anywhere else. So if you can't buy, your lofi music that you like to listen to, then that's an option. You can do that. I have lofi music on here that I've gotten from YouTube. Just know going in that you're not getting the best quality sound out of that music as if you were ripping it from a CD or buying a digital download of that music. So another thing is people are buying these iPods, and unfortunately sometimes they're not formatted for their computer. So you need to make sure you go ahead and you format it as well, because you're going to have problems where your computer is not going to recognize this device at all. I see it in comments of my other iPod videos. I connect my iPod to my computer, but nothing's showing up. iTunes doesn't show it. The Apple Music app doesn't show it on Mac as well. Make sure you format it. There's an easy way to format these. You have to have it connected. Hold down the middle button and the menu button for a while for it to restart and shut down. Then once it's back up, I believe you hold the middle button and the play button. Once it's powering back on, you go ahead and let go of the play button. You just hold down that middle button, and that'll go ahead and put it in a factory reset mode. Then from there, you can go ahead and reset it. So a lot of times it's not iTunes that's the problem. It's just the iPod needs to be formatted so you can go ahead and put your music on it that way. Now, in terms of different iPods, there's iPod Nanos. There's these iPods that are probably the most common that you're going to see, which is the iPod 5th generation. The 5th generation is going to be the best one in terms of modding or replacing parts. You can get the iPod Classic 6th and 7th gen. I know a lot of people like those because of the smooth look of it and the updated OS that lets you see the album artwork a little bit better. But the 5th generation is going to be the best in terms of getting the battery replaced, replacing the screen, replacing the faceplate or the back plate, and all that kind of stuff, or making changes to it, putting an SD card in here instead of the hard drive or some other form of storage. They're also great for modding if you don't want to use the typical, Apple iPod OS. You can get Rockbox on it, and that's a different way to get music on there as well. A lot of people are doing that. So these are really great in terms of modding and also replacing parts if you need to go ahead and do that. But yeah, guys, iPods in these years are still great to have. Yeah, some might say it's just a hipster thing or it's just a random niche that people will eventually not use. But honestly, I use this thing almost every day. I've recently added a bunch of movies to it through my converter that I have on my computer. So I got a bunch of the Studio Ghibli movies, Coraline. I have all these movies that I have on here, and I've actually been watching them at night before bed instead of being on TikTok and doom scrolling for 3 hours. Not that long, maybe an hour sometimes. I think I hit an hour and a half once. But yeah, instead I'll watch a little bit of a movie every night or listen to music on it, and it's great for that. And yes, I know people don't like wired headphones. Everyone wants to use their AirPods or some Bluetooth. There is options for that as well. As I mentioned in the modding, you can go ahead and get a Bluetooth mod for this, or you can buy the little adapter on top if you don't want to do any kind of modding, and you can do that. So you don't have to stick to wired headphones, but honestly, that's just the route that I like to have. I always carry my little Bose Sound Sport headphones with me, or I'll use some bigger, over-the-ear headphones as well. But yeah, guys, what are your thoughts on the iPod? Is this something that you think you want to get? I still use CDs, I still use cassettes, but the iPod is a great option, especially in my car, because I have an auxiliary input. I go ahead and just take my iPod with me so that I have all my music. It's not using my phone's battery or anything or data or anything like that, and I don't have to worry about listening to music and then being interrupted by some notification or GPS or something like that. So it's a great option out there for some people. It's not for everybody, but if you're interested, go on eBay, look for iPods that have a replaceable battery already installed, like a new one or something like that. But yeah, let me know down in the comments what you guys think about the iPods, if you have one, or if you plan on getting one in the near future. I've been Rudy with the Retro Universe. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Take it easy. Bye.